Welcome to the Not Just Waiting podcast. I'm your host, Brianna Hoffman, and this is a space for women learning to wait well and live fully. Whether you're in the middle of uncertainty, transition, or just figuring out what's next, this podcast is here to remind you you are not behind, not forgotten, and definitely not just waiting. Let's dig into truth, grow in courage, and hold on to hope together. Hey friends, welcome back to the Not Just Waiting podcast. Today I'm joined by Cassandra Crawley Mayo, a best-selling author, dynamic speaker, and podcast host who carries such a powerful message of purpose and identity. Cassandra made history as the first African-American woman to hold every corporate leadership role she stepped into. And today, she's using that experience to help women step fully into who God created them to be. She's passionate about helping purpose-driven women stop shrinking, get out of their own way, and rise into clarity, confidence, and God-aligned purpose. Through her signature RISE method and her program Rise Beyond Limits, Cassandra walks women through identifying internal blocks, breaking free from emotional exhaustion, and living with intention, impact, and direction. Her voice is bold, honest, and deeply rooted in faith. And this conversation is such a powerful reminder that we were never meant to play small. Let's dive in. Hey friends, welcome back to the Not Just Waiting podcast. I'm so glad you guys are here, and I am so glad that I get to introduce you to Miss Cassandra this morning, or maybe it's afternoon where you are. Either way, whatever time you're listening and working with, we are so glad you're here, and we are going to jump into an awesome conversation about becoming. As you guys know, we have been talking about becoming this season on the podcast, the in-between seasons, the waiting, and how to trust God in that. So Miss Cassandra, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm so excited. Thanks for inviting me.
This is going to be so fun. So, do you mind if I just jump in with our questions and we can get going?
Absolutely. I
Perfect.
don't mind
Okay.
at all.
Yay. My first question for us today is, who do you sense God has been forming you into in this season, especially in ways that weren't visible or celebrated?
God is forming me in this season to trust him more. Um, you know, throughout my Christian journey, it's always been about trust. And I'm like, I trust him. Yeah, sure I do. And then when something happens, I'm like, God, are you can't believe you're doing this to me. So it's more about trust and understanding that the spirit lives in me. So he's not far at all. I mean, it's right here and living proof. And what I would call divine perspective, when I put that in perspective, then I'm like, okay, all right, okay. So that helps me start trusting more and letting go.
Mm-hmm. That's a good word. I have a follow-up question.
Sure.
How do you practically trust God when you are in those situations? Like, hey, what are you doing? Like, what is this plan? How do you choose to trust God in those seasons?
Yeah. Couple of things. This year, I have rental properties, and I always said when they become vacant, I will sell them because um, it's just a lot of work. But I've been blessed to have individuals that are phenomenal. And I had one this year who's probably been renting for 30 plus years. She was wonderful, and she became sick and she had to move. She could not go up the stairs. Um, and she had cancer. And I understood. I would have understood if she just wanted to move anyway. But when she left, I was really struggling. Do I re-rent or do I sell? And I actually that just played on me for a while. And I'm like, "So what should I do?" And I'm, like, this is a quick society, okay? I want a decision. I wanna know what I'm gonna do. I wanna see the end of the road. And I just said, "I'm gonna trust you. I'm gonna trust that you're gonna let me know what direction I should go in. And
Mhm.
and I knew the home needed some renovating, because it's an older home, bathrooms, and then I couldn't find anybody that would do it at a reasonable cost. Then I said, well, I guess I'll sell it. And then I actually started getting phone calls from individuals, investors that was interested. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Then I had a price, a cost that I wanted. And every time I said it, people are like, I don't I think that's too much. And I mean, I had a lot of calls. Then I'm like, "You know what? God, your will be done. Whatever, I have no clue what you're doing." And I asked God. I remember that night before going to bed, I said, "God, please again reveal to me what it is that you would have for me to do." The next morning, I received a phone call and they gave me my asking price immediately. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, look at God." So that was an example for me to say, "You know what? I trusted him. I just let it go and believed that he would answer my prayers." And he did immediately. And that doesn't always happen. So now I know what I'm going to do.
Yeah. That's such a fun story. Maybe it wasn't fun when you were living it. But it's a fun story about the faithfulness of the Lord and how impatient we are sometimes. Um, Recently I've been like all over the story of Abraham and Sarah and like learning the different like age range and the time ranges because when you're a child, you learn, "Oh, Abraham and Sarah had Isaac." And you're like, "Oh, the Lord provided." Yeah. But then when you are a grown up, you realize how many years are
Yep.
behind the Lord
Mhm.
providing. And when Abraham and Sarah decided to have Ishmael without the Lord's permission, and then you see the consequence of that,
Yes.
even in today's society.
Exactly.
w- What of those, like your story about needing to wait to see what the Lord was going to do, and that person calling and giving you your asking price, like he knew what they were going to call and give you the price. Now, you didn't know what was going on in their head or in their life or what they needed to see it. Granted, we would like to know the whole picture, and the Lord does. And so I just love that your story, there was an in between, but the Lord still provided.
Mhm. Exactly. Exactly. Great story about Sarah and Ishmael and how the wife made the decision. I think, you know, "You should have a baby with my maidservant." And he's like, "Okay." Right. I'm like, "Okay. Yeah, you're right." And their age just I'm like, "It's no way." And God says, "Are you laughing?" "No, I'm not laughing. I just it's just difficult to believe that I'm gonna have a child at 100 years old."
It's like, Lord, this is physically impossible. What are you, what,
I know.
what?
I know. You knew then it had to be a God, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I have another question for us.
Okay.
Was there a season where God seemed more focused on shaping your character than advancing your calling? And what did that form in you?
It when I think about that for a minute, I think about my life experiences. Um, just and I'm going to use. I wrote a book that you may bring up, but I just want to highlight a chapter in my book. And one of the chapters was titled, "Is There Really a God?" And when I started to write that, I felt that everybody thinks there's a God. Why would I put that? But I was being obedient. I was being
Mhm.
obedient because I questioned him. I questioned him, her, whoever, gender people call him, but I say him. And in that, I was at my wit's end and I just couldn't take anymore. And I remembered so vividly how I ran up my stairs in my home and I was bawling. I was crying. It was on a Saturday. And I'm like, I can't believe all of this stuff is happening to me. What is wrong? I go to church I read your word. I'm in Sunday school. I witness. I do all of that. I was just so angry. And I remember going up and saying, if you're real, I'm gonna pull out this chair and I want you to sit right here. I did. And I said, I want you to sit down. And I was boo-hooing, Rihanna. I had the worst headache when this incident was over. And it took a while. I was devastated. I was so, so upset with him. And I remember um uh I, I was exhausted. When I finally went to sleep, I felt someone in my bedroom. And I said, somebody's in my room. And I said, they're going to kill me because my face was facing the window and the window was up. And I'm like, okay, it must be the window, the breeze breathing on me. And I was like, but it's no breeze. So to make a long story short, I got up the next morning, did not even think about what I did the night before. I went to church. And when I was in church, the minister had this dynamic service, which I can't tell you what it was about, but whatever it was about, it hit me. It hit
Mhm.
me so hard, and I am what I would call a laid back person. I literally fell out of the chair and started speaking this weird language, and I was like, what is going on? So after all of that, it was more to that story. I immediately left the church before it was really over because I didn't want anybody to come up to me. I was embarrassed. I didn't know what was going on, what happened. And I went home because I usually like go shopping or visit people. I went home and I went up my steps again and I just stood in the room, and all of a sudden, something said, don't you ever test me again. Now, do you believe I'm real? I, Brianna, oh my God, it was some type of experience. So when you talk about, ask the question, when in my life God was shaping me? He shaped me. And of course, it wasn't over. I had other trials and tribulation, but that in itself blew me away. And you could never, ever tell me there was not a God because it was just too weird. So it's incidents like that that occurred. And when I look back on it, I'm like, okay. Because right after that, I read the entire Bible. Yeah. So when I say life experiences, boy, was he forming me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I love I love that he showed up because you asked him to.
I did. I know, but how he did. Oh, mhm,
Sure, when you experienced it, you were not calm, cool, and collected like you are at the moment.
right. I
But
I didn't understand.
and I like, did you get to process that with people or was that just you and the Lord? Now I'm just curious.
Yeah. Um, because of my personality, my demeanor, my temperament, that was not me. Okay? That was definitely out of character. And that's the only thing that could have happened to let me know, because he works in you personally. Whatever he knows who you are, so he knows what'll get you. And when that happened, I'm like, okay, all right, there's a God. Yeah, exactly. And I had to put that in my book.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah,
glad you shared that. While we're talking about your book, can you tell us a little bit more about it?
yeah. When I retired from work, one of my dreams was to retire at the age of 55. Now, a lot of people, many people want to retire, can't wait. But one of the things I say is when you retire, what are you going to do? I mean, you just can't, sit around. You have to do something because if you're not, you're dying. And I've always wanted to write a book, and I didn't for 15 years. And during COVID, I sat down and I started writing the book. And there were my book. is really it's titled Is Your Way in Your Way? It's a self-discovery guide for women on on to learn from your experiences, to restore yourself and start becoming your true self again. And it it starts each chapter is actually written to women and they're love letters. Dear women who compare themselves, dear women who ever doubted whether there was a God, just things that I know that individuals go through. And when I put the scripture or scripture to begin the title of the book, and then at the end I did a synopsis of what God said about it. And during that time, I had a lot of it was tough. It was tough trying to find a publisher. Should I publish? It was just a journey. But what I didn't know is that that book would bless so many women because of they would be able to see themselves in the pages of that book because it wasn't only me. And it's a non-judgmental and there are individuals that I have heard from that have emailed me. It's like, oh my gosh. And I remember one lady said, if you have not blessed anybody with this book, you've blessed me. And let me tell you why. Because you saved my life. And that to me was just enough because it touched her heart. It was something in the book that she resonated with. And that's why I wrote the book, to be a blessing.
Yeah. I love that the Lord has used your book in that way. It's so cool.
Yeah.
Well, while we're chatting about things that we were gonna do later, because it kind of made me laugh that you were like, "Yeah, I'm gonna retire when I'm 55, and then I'll do the things." Because that was definitely my plan. The Lord said differently with that. But what have you had to release, whether that's expectations, timelines, identity, in order to become who God is inviting you to be now?
Yeah. I had to release many of the chapters in my book. I had to release comparing myself. I was big with that. I look at social media and I'm like, oh, that's so nice. They're doing this. And realizing that eh, that is not true. Who's going to put the bad things in social media? You know? And then I looked at racism and inequality where God says there are things and that I have to let go. I looked at losing a loved one. What do you do? How do you go through that? Low self-esteem. So these are the things that I had to work on to let go. They will come back, but there are times now when I'll ask the question that I've questioned in the title of my book: Is your way in your way? And I realized going through that, yeah, it is. It's that lens I was wearing. It's that what happened in my childhood, things that occurred in my childhood. I grew up as an only child and I was spoiled. And when it was time to get out on my own and things didn't happen like I thought they should, I was like, what is going on? Why you what my gosh. And I remember when I graduated from college, my first job was in Birmingham, Alabama. And that was during the time ending the civil rights movement. And when I was getting off the plane, I remember me looking around thinking, uh-oh, guns and dogs. Because that's what I read, that's what I heard. So there were things like that that I had to let go of and trust God. And because of things that had happened to me, that's when my relationship got closer to God. And I realized then that's why I had to have a relationship with God
Yeah.
because of what I've been through, because I wouldn't have done it if I never went through anything.
Yeah. I love your story of you having to have a relationship with God because you wouldn't have done it, because I think fear gets in our way a lot, talking about are you in your way? Um, and because the Lord is peace in fear, we get to do crazy things because his peace is with us. that we never would have dreamed of doing or thought was a smart move. Like, I don't know. I grew up in the South. So when you said Birmingham, I was like, oh, I immediately knew what you were talking about and where you were going with it. And that's a really scary thing that you did.
Yeah, yeah. I
It's
was a
just,
bold little girl. It was all for a job, but it was all for a purpose.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm sure you learned things while you were there that you now use or have used previously.
absolutely. I know as a result of all that has happened in my life, humility is unbelievable for me. Extremely humble. Um, Sometimes people will say, "You're just too compassionate." So either you lead with your heart or you lead with your head. And I have to, because I believe I know we're all created equal, number one. And I've been in situations where even Caucasian people felt out of place in certain incidents. And I felt it, I knew it, I could see it. And so I would make them feel comfortable on purpose because I knew how it felt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a gift to notice other people and know how they're feeling and then go, not fix it, but fix it.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Exactly. And that's why I think another gift that God has blessed me with is a spirit of discernment. Yeah.
Well, talking about discernment, we on the podcast talk about waiting well pretty often. I mean, it's in the title, not just waiting. And we chat about active waiting and passive waiting. And we know that active waiting is doing something in some shape, fashion, or form, whether that is going somewhere or writing a note or making a social media post or calling someone, whatever the Lord has told you to do as your next right step. And then we have passive waiting, which sometimes involves me on my couch with peanut butter cookies and a movie. But there's also different kinds of passive waiting that rest and Sabbath and that kind of thing. But in your seasons with your gift of discernment, how have you waited well and kind of chosen which way to go, whether passively or actively?
I recall being in positions, all of my positions, I was the first African American female to be in leadership roles. And it was during a time when individuals said, you got that role because you're an African American and you're not qualified. They just hired you because you were black. And I was naive in the beginning, thank God, because I don't know how I would have responded to to the interactions that I had with people. But but God's grace blessed me to do a phenomenal job. So I was passive in the sense that I'm just gonna do what I have to do. I'm not
Yeah,
gonna get upset. I'm not, even there's one example I will share is there was a senior executive, I was promoted, and he called me in the office and he shared with me that my colleagues said that I was embarrassing. And I looked at him, I'm like, "In what way?" He said that they mentioned that when I'm with clients, I ask too many questions. So because of that, he suggested that I go back to the industry that I was in because he thought that would be better for me. Rihanna, I looked at him and I cried. I was just devastating because that just caught me off guard. And of course, I was the only African American. I was like, "Oh my gosh." So what I did was I said, "I'd like to go home and think about it." And he said, "Okay, just let me know in the morning." And I went home and prayed about it, thought about it, talked to my parents about it. And I went back and I said, I made a decision. I'm not going anywhere. And he said, "Okay then." And so passive for months I had to do what others thought I couldn't. I just went on and did what it was, my role and what it was I had to do. Probably a year later, I was always called upon when there were problems at accounts or with clients. He would say, "You need to call Cassandra. She'll figure it out and tell us what we need to do to fix it." So the passivity was for years.
Yeah.
And I wasn't there to prove it. I was just doing what I do.
Yeah.
So it was action, sure. I'm not
Yeah.
leaving. Passivity, I'm staying.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And in that season, you became almost, I'm going to say irreplaceable because you were the problem solver.
exactly. You're exactly right. And that's why got a degree, master's in organizational development. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. So all of these things happen, I say, for a reason. And I
Yeah.
loved OD and I love solving problems, but I did get tired of it because I fix them and then they send me somewhere else to solve some more.
Yep. That tends to be the way of the world,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Exactly.
Goodness gracious. Well, is there anything else you want to share with our listeners today?
Yes. I have a signature program called the Rise Journey, and my logo is actually the Phoenix. And my program is a 6-month program called Rise Beyond Limits. So the rise part is number one, you recognize is for the aura. You cannot heal what you won't name. Then we go in and we interrupt. What you don't interrupt, it will continue to rule your life. And then you surrender. God can't do anything drive your life if you don't release the wheel. Okay, so we kind of go through that part and then we come to the embrace with the rise. You don't need to become her. Remember, you're already her. And then the build, which is rise beyond limits, is build a life that does not burn you out. And the L is for launch. This is not your next step. This is your ride. And that's something I want to share because I'm on a quest to empower women to achieve their potential. And the reason I am because God has us all here for a reason. And there are a lot of people who are just going through the motions. And if you do, and if you rise to what God would have you to do, you will be a much happier, at peace person. And when it's time for God to say, "Okay, well done. It's time for you to go." I don't want anybody to lay on their bed or wherever they are and say, "I wish I didn't work so hard." Or I wish I would have traveled more. But there are two things that individuals say that are transitioning. I wish I could have been more true to myself, and I wish I could have been happier. And I want and desire people to be happier and be true because that's what God would have for them to do. So I just encourage your listeners to think about the rise journey. Rise beyond your limits. Do not leave this earth with any regrets. You want your cup to be running over so he can say, "Well done, my good and faithful servant."
Absolutely. Where can we, is that on your website to get
Yes,
involved with that?
yes.
Okay, perfect.
You can contact me on my website and go under programs and you will find my I coach and my program. So I'm pretty busy making a
Mm.
difference because that's what he
I
wants
love
me to
that.
do. Yeah. Much is when much is given, much is required.
It is. In fact,
Yeah.
we will leave
Absolutely.
we will leave the link to your website and all your social media and all of those things in our show notes. friends, if you're like, oh, I have questions or you want to get involved, please go to our show notes, which is typically under the video if you are watching. And if you're listening via audio, it's under the play button on the audio. So click it, and then you can go to Miss Cassandra's website and get connected. That sounds amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Super, super cool. Well, this has been so fun. I have loved your stories. I have loved your encouragement. I have loved getting to listen to some of the really cool things that you've gotten to do in life. I've been
Yeah.
like over here whispering like, that's awesome the whole
Mm,
time. Um,
thank thank you. Thank you.
but friends, if you will connect with Miss Cassandra via social media, I'm pretty sure she is literally everywhere. Anywhere that there's social media, she has a link. So if you want to, you're like, oh, is she on TikTok? She is, in fact. So connect with her. Please tell her thank you for jumping on our podcast. And please get involved with the things that she has told us about today on her website. Go check it out. Ask some good questions. And let's keep going. See you guys next week. Bye, friends.
Okay. Thank you, Rihanna.
Thanks for listening to the Not Just Waiting podcast. I hope today reminded you that even in the in-between, God is working, and you are not alone. If this episode encouraged you, would you share it with a friend? And don't forget to hit follow so you never miss a moment of truth, hope, and real conversation. You can find me on Instagram at rihanna.ivy.hoff and join the community over on Substack for deeper reflections and weekly encouragement. Until next time, take heart, friend. God is in the waiting with you.